Rajni, it's such a pleasure to finally have a chance to talk to you after all this time. I mean,
Yes.
I had the good fortune of seeing your show last fall at Patel, and I was absolutely smitten.
Oh, that's
Um,
so nice.
and then to hear you speak at the Toronto Art Fair,
Yeah. Oh,
I
you
was
were there?
like, yes, you
Oh
know?
my
So
God. Okay. I think I left. You should have come and said hi to me, but I think I ran away after that because I was starving.
no, I think it was just one of those conversations that I so crave and want to hear, especially in places like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was
For
so
sure.
fierce, and I was like, oh, it was just after whatever 30 years of being in the arts and cultural milieu in this country. It was just like, thank you.
Oh, you're
So
welcome.
thank
I don't
you
know.
for
Maybe.
participating.
Yeah, that was it's really nice to be included in talks in spaces like that, considering the surroundings. Like um my place in like any place that I take up in the canon, like I really forced it. Like I knew that like if I didn't make that place, it's not gonna be there at all. So yeah, it's really nice to be included now. And sometimes it can be, see, I'm a little bit like, I'm kind of a bit of a troublemaker, but it's like, but it's good. Like, I think it's good. You know, when people are like, what a pain in the ass or something, I'm like, it's good for you. Just take it, man. Listen.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, please bring it on, bring it on.
Yeah. I try to bring it on. Try to bring it on. Stay trying to bring it on.
Yeah, so you were born in Colombo in Sri Lanka and you immigrated to Toronto, but via Australia. And
No, so it's so weird. We went to Australia. I was like 2.
uh-huh.
And then my parents went to try and have like lives and careers in like super racist Australia, which is like, if you can imagine, if anyone hasn't been there or spent time there, if you can imagine a country full of white people, and it's kind of like the deep south, not the deep south, it's kind of like the midwestern, southwestern United States. You know, that's the thinking, but it's like a continent, and it's super, so they couldn't find or keep jobs, really, like they really tried. And then I think we were there for like 3-4 years, and then they came back, and then we went back to Sri Lanka, and they had my sister. Then we came to America. We lived in Buffalo, New York State for a year before we could cross the border, just in motels. And
Wow.
then since then, I was in the GTA around the Greater Toronto area. Yeah.
So you are no stranger to migration and its roots, my lady.
Yeah, a couple times. We did that a couple times.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So like growing up, GTA, you attended OCAD for your BFA.
Yes, you got
But
it.
I can imagine that like being a maker and art is like deep down in your DNA started a long, like a really, really long time ago. Could you talk about when you started making art?
So it's a great question. Sri Lankan babies, like when we're like 1 or something, we're taken to an astrologer, like a guruji, who then reads our math, like astrological math. And then there's also a past life part of that, because it's a Buddhist country and we believe in reincarnation. So looking at the past life is a really big starting point for the venture of a young person. They see that as a good start, like a great starting point, way to start thinking about this person's future is their past. So in my past life, I was an artist as well. So that really helps my parents. So in a lot of, in a lot of Sri Lankan Sinhalese families, we're a colony, right? We're heavily colonized. So, and in the age of in capitalism as well, and it's like that double pressure of like not showcasing, like there's pressure on children to enter into professions that are regarded by the West as being either lucrative or more respectful than others, and that those include the regular things like law, engineering is a big one, medicine. So a lot of families will push, like, doesn't matter what their child's interests actually are, they'll push for for the kid to be in that sort of career. But having knowledge of my past life helped my parents to give me all the crayons and the paints and the paper and whatever, and on top of everything, and the best part, to leave me alone, right? They'll just be like, okay, there you go, have fun. There was never like a, oh, you should, try and do this or that, which I'm very lucky. Like in a lot of families, that never doesn't happen. So I've been drawing and painting since I was like an infant, toddler. And I always knew that I would be an artist. So that really helps, right? Helps a lot.
Wow.
Helps when you know. Yeah, helps when you know.
That's remarkable. And
yeah.
Most immigrant families I know, it's like, what are you even doing? And I think for a long time I had to explain. And so I'm so happy to hear that. It's
yeah, I mean, there was still like a lot of like my family, we're I hate the word lower class, but like we've never really had a lot. And so there was that anxiety around the time, because I got accepted into OCAD and like some other programs. I was looking at animation and design too.
Mm-hmm.
And then OCAD accepted me. I was like, I went to OCAD because I wanted to move out of my parents' house for school. So I realized that I'd have to I'd had to get out of Scarborough. I'd have to be downtown to meet people. So that's after researching what it kind of takes to live in a creative profession and make it lucrative for yourself. Where was I going with that? We're talking about there was anxiety around the time when I accepted the OCAD-U invitation. They were just like, ooh, okay, yes, fine, but like you could see that they were like, ooh, she's gonna be poor like us, oh god. So so yeah, and I am quite poor, but it's getting good, it's getting better, getting much better, especially recently. But yeah, there was still that anxiety that's like related to not really having roots in the place where you live. I think that's plays a huge part in that type of anxiety. It's like, hey, come on, we're in a new place now, root yourself. And it's just like, oh, it's not even in me to do that. All I've done is just move since I was small, right? Like we moved and moved and moved. So it's like, to find roots and put them down, like that's a strange place for that anxiety to come from. But I think they were thinking about sort of my quality of life and like ultimately also like my support for my own family that includes them, right? Like they're thinking about that too. So,
yeah, exactly.
So luckily it went the other way. Not that much luck, more work than luck, but luckily it went the other way, and I'm able to pay my bills now, so that's great.
Yeah, you're able to be a professional artist, which is freaking amazing.
It's hard. It's really difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe you could share with me a little bit about your creative process and like your relationship to painting. What draws you to it. There's so many qualities that I want to talk about your work, but tell me about how this happens.
Yeah. So it's great you brought up OCAD-U in the last question, because that's a place where I figured out mostly what not to do. And I had to leave to figure that out. I was in school, OCAD-U is currently sort of decolonizing their curriculum as much as they can, considering. Like when I say considering, like this is an institution, a white settler institution built on certain set of foundational rules and principles. Really difficult to break that. In a lot of cases, it's so much work that they would rather not, right? So there's like all that comfort and privilege associated with operating in that manner. So it's like entering into that, and I was in there for 3 years, 2.5 years, and just being like, oh my God, like by that time I was researching on my own, like in the curriculum was like group of 7, like great masters still, like the painting history. I was like, no. And then by that time I was living downtown, also looking around being like, hey, this is a primarily immigrant city. Why isn't it's not reflected in the curriculum? What's happening? So I was like starting to talk to teachers, starting to figure out what's going on here. At the end of it, I was making my own career, like researching by myself to find my history, my historical place in the canon of the West. And that would be as sort of newcomer, culture maker, like that's what immigrants have done, right? In Toronto, like we made the culture here, actually. So, yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
like you're you know challenging the canon, the conventions, the sort of
Yeah.
dominant culture, and you're in university and you're kind of making a space for that
Made
for
a
yourself to inform to feed yourself
to feed
and
myself.
so, yeah, what point does this become manifested in the singularity that is now your work?
Yeah, so I had to leave school. I left in second and a half year, and I went and I worked on a surfing lodge, in a surf lodge on the Pacific coast of Nicaragua on an island. So I was just chilling there. Like it's, I would say to like any art school student to definitely leave if you can, like halfway through, or just reassess yourself, because you don't know. I only spent 1 year out of high school working and saving up for school. I didn't take any OSAP. I barely took any OSAP. So I saved money and I went, but like it was nonstop, right? Like you don't have that moment. And especially if you're doing work that's identity politics, or you're using your work to think about who you are and to also show others who they are too by that way. To go away and figure out who the hell you are, like you need to really do that. How you're going to speak from an empty place. So went away and I came back, and it's actually coming back to school in like 2010 that like I formed my visual language and kind of figuring out what do I want to do here. And it was so weird. Like by that time, I was looking at Rajput and Mughal miniaturism. I was looking at, because I'm Sri Lankan, we got so much Japanese like graphic design and TV programming and like film stuff, and like we even have some names that are left over from commerce with Japan long ago, right? So it's just like there's all of that I really love just naturally, like woodblock prints, anime, manga, and then of course like I'm a big huge fan of science fiction. So all the way that looks, the aesthetics of science fiction, all kind of like they kind of like smashed together in 2010 when I was in my 2009, 2010, when I was like in my last year, and I was like, oh, I know what I'm gonna do now. And it all kind of popped out of me, these two series, the new ethnography and the new archaeology, which featured women of color, and exploring like, as like humans and bodies that have agency, but whose image can sometimes become subverted and used against us to market things to like Caucasian markets and like all of this. I was looking at the politics of the colored body in like this really cool way that I was so excited to start that. So that was the very beginning. And some of it, I look back at that work, I'm like, oh, it's like an eye roll. It's kind of naive to me, but it has been a very useful series, as I've heard, for lots of diasporic, marginalized, racialized artists. So that's great news. For me, it felt unsure, but like I felt really wild and free making that work. That's how I knew that it was good. That's how I knew, because the work I was making before I left, I was listening to the profs, listening to the teachers at school, and my perspective on identity politics and my perspective on who I am in another place was shaped by their sort of narrow, sort of white settler perspective, like the way that they saw it. I was listening too much to that. You should not listen. You have to listen to yourself, right? So you have to go away to make that and then come back, and then it burst. It really burst for me. And then since then, those two bodies of work have kind of separated, and like new ones have come into play. And I'm always sort of experimenting and moving with the way that I make images. It's very exciting for me to like do things like collaborate and do things like collage now. Sometimes look at how that is, and working in sculpture and like changing scale also helps me very much, like going really big and then going small again, because it will inform one another. So yeah, I hope that answers the question of how like my visual style formed, and it's continuing to form again anew.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting because it's such a huge basin, of rich references and ways that you've informed and nourished, your what has become, a really amazing sort of, yeah, visual realm. What's remarkable too is your painting, is the flatness of your painting. How, what is your relationship with painting? Because the way I see it is and why painting was such an interesting kind of mode of address to explore diaspora is because it is so dominated by the Western canon.
Yeah.
Tell me about painting and your relationship to it.
Oh my God. Yeah, you know what? It makes me think of this one comment. This is a great question. It makes me think of this one comment that someone made to me while they were doing, I think, a crit of my work. And it was just like, oh, your work is more like drawing. Like, it's not that painterly, is it? Like, it's more like, I would talk about it as drawing. And I was like, that's so colonized. Like, that is so crazy. Because this person has never investigated ways of applying pigment to a surface outside of like the great master's European way of painting. And I was like, whoa, so you've never ever seen like the entire history of like Chinese, Japanese, Southeast Asian, Buddhist art? Like, you've never seen any of that? Like, you've never even looked at it? What are you talking about? It looks like drawing. My painting is painting. It comes from a different canon or several different canons. So that was a really crazy comment. I will never forget hearing that because it opened this window of not ignorance, but naivety that's like really comfortable and like, oh, this is how I paint, this is what painting is. And like, it was just such a strange thing to hear. So anyway, my history, my relationship to painting is like, honestly, a lot of it, I'd have to say, like, I have my way of rooting my practice historically that I know it belongs. But like the biggest influence on it is animation is probably like one of the top ones for me. Like, I was in high school when like one of my really awesome, cool stoner friends handed me a heavy metal magazine for the first time. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Wow.
So it started as Metal Hurlant in France with like all these like weird old dudes making like dirty sort of like sci-fi art, but the art was stunning. Like, they were the masters of it. Hates that they're all like white men, but that's what it is. Like, that's a huge thing. And anyway, I think that I've taken that and been able to move it to like better place, but it's like identity wise. But anyway, like picking that up, and I saw like H.R. Geiger's work. I saw like Jean Giraud's work, Moebius's work. I saw who else? Like, so there were so many like beautiful artists in there. Now the names are escaping me. There are so many that I love, but it's like picking that up for the first time and like looking at the, like a lot of it is like Sydney, like a lot of it is concept art for science fiction, or it doubles as that, or they were working as that, working to develop like the aesthetics of science fiction for film and television, right, for moving image. And then there were these beautiful, beautiful stills and studies of these worlds, like so fleshed out, so intricate, so much detail. Like, world building is huge in my practice, right? So when I saw, imagine my feelings seeing that for the first time, how thoroughly they paid attention to building these worlds, better worlds, new worlds, sucky worlds. Like, everything was like bang on. They thought about the science and the physics of it. And I'm a big fan of science. I'm a big fan of STEM. So it's just like, that was it for me. So, I mean, yeah, my relationship to painting, like a lot of it's anchored in this world of like trying to figure out how to build worlds, that will move after, and that can mean just on a screen, or like it becomes big into a poster advertising a movie for something. But I think that, science fiction means a lot more than just that, right? It means a ton of things for me anyway. So that, I'd have to like talk about, yeah, that would be like the thing that I can describe as having the most influence on me in terms of painting the way I paint. And like, of course, I brought so many other things into it that I was looking into around the same time I was absorbing all its subject matter. But yeah, that's a big one, science fiction.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why the technique is so astounding because you know you achieve you achieve that flatness, you know, that kind of graphic novel sort of
Yeah.
texture. It's like fully integrated. You don't, you know, it's unbelievable. Okay, that's all.
So
It's
sweet. And
remarkable.
honestly, the lineup you got for this show, I have to give it to you, man. That's incredible. That's incredible. You
It
did
shows
it.
us that people are you know, people are like, yeah, we wanna be, I don't know, we wanna have this conversation, you know, we wanna be in conversation with each other.
Yep. It's so needed. It's
Mm-hmm.
so needed. I think that's what I meant to say. It's like seeing the lineup. First of all, there are names in there, like having my name in there, like that means a lot to me personally, because there's several artists in that show that I do look up to. But it's also like, yeah, this is like, these kinds of exhibitions are always, they come and people are like, this is overdue. This is overdue. Like this needed to happen so long ago, finally. So yeah, thanks. Thanks
No.
for
You
the show
know,
together.
it's the pleasure is truly all mine. I have to say it's a dream come true, you know, to be able to do stuff. And you know, it's like it's only because the artists are out there doing kick-ass things. That's what makes it possible, you know. That's all. It all starts there.
Yeah.
Um, and I have to say it's so nice to see like the that the conversation has started so long ago, and to see artists like, you know, like Frank Bowling, for example, you know, like in conversation with with us is, you know what I mean? We need
Yeah.
to pay homage to these people. We've been fighting for a long time. You
Yes.
know, yeah. And the other thing that I found so astute in your work is how articulate you are about identity politics, about notions of hybridity, about you know, sort of I mean, I'm not surprised that science fiction is so integral to the thinking and aesthetics, because, you know, the other is often posited as, you know, a kind of an alien, or, you know, within a side. And you make it empowering, you know, like you make it like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
next layer, like next levels.
Yeah, is that really dark? No, it's okay. Corrected, right? I had to go.
Fine.
Someone's doing yard work or something. Yeah, yes, yes. Um,
Yeah, it's
so
very, sorry, go on.
yeah, was there a question in that? That was a question. You're just saying that. Wait a second. You're just saying that othering and science fiction uses science fiction as a platform, can speak on othering in like many ways that are parallel to cultural politics, identity politics of the migrant in the West.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree fully. I mean, like, you know, thanks for saying that I'm articulate.
Well, I mean, you
I
know,
feel like an idiot when when I'm talking. Sometimes I listen to myself. I'm like, oh my God, that's terrible. But that's very sweet to have an outsider who's like, you know, who does this for a living, being like, you speak well. It's just nice to hear that.
agree about that. There's
In,
just so much to unpack, you know, when you're talking about,
yeah,
you know, about a kind of discourse of decolonization. There's so many layers. It's very deep. It's complex, and so, you know, I think that it's just wonderful to hear people, you know, take the space that they will, and
yeah,
just go for it, you know.
yeah. That's something that like, yeah, identity politics has been more and more important for me in that it's in an artist's own body of work, like getting that clarity right, like being very clear has become, that's something that for me, that's the most important. But it's the way that I'm discovering it is that it needs to be more and more clear as an artist to yourself. Like, we live in a really performative time, politically performative time. So it's like it's just insane. Like, I remember when I was in OCAD being, you know, seeing other artists of color sort of depoliticizing their work and making work that was really white. And I was like, what are you doing? I don't understand this. Why would you do that? There's so much more work to be done than that. Take it or tear it apart, start again. Yeah, it feels safe, right? But it's like, we have to make the new world. Like, who's gonna make it? Like, you're just gonna participate and dance along with this nonsense? Like, you have to make the world. So I didn't understand that. And like, fast forward now to a time where being honest with your politics, or like being yourself with your politics, like, it's still not about, there's still so much work to do, because now people are using this time to like point fingers of wokeness at each other. Like, you didn't say it properly, you didn't do a thing. It's just like, it's very exhausting. And I think that you know, artists need to use their voice and their work as honestly as possible, make mistakes, but keep going. Don't stop and be scared of this politically performative time. That's the worst when I see that. Mm-hmm. I have to tell you that I recently like stepped away from a series of work that I made, that I used to make like way back when. It was a series called Africa Galactica, where I made a Black space hero who was like with like huge army of like colored women, and like I got to design all this tech and like talk about like a colored identity that is in the future, and like heavily, like, it was quite feminist, it was quite empowered, and I had a great time honestly making that body of work. And like, it was so good. The folks who bought it's like all Black purchased, or like donated to like charities that support Black community. Like, it was, you know, made and given away, or like gifted or bought in like the best, with the best sort of thing intentions. But like, you know, after hearing sort of hearing lots of really sad sort of comments on like how it created Black pain, because I'm not I don't identify as Black, right? So it's just like, it's coming, like stepping away. It's just like, oh, you know what, like, I'm really glad that I made that mistake. I'm really glad I made that mistake, because now I get to step back. I stepped away from the series is taken down. Everything, whoever, like, if people want to like resolve anything with like purchasing it, like a lot of it has been resolved already, really good. But I was happy to like step down and step away from that. And because this is the time that we're in, we have to be like getting to clarity, getting to like a clear place with our politics. If we're doing identity politics work, like, be really clear. And like, making that mistake was a big part of like becoming clear on my identity politics particularly. So
wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think
the whole thing, right?
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I think it's very important, you know, for younger artists who are exploring these very complex questions to understand that mistakes will be made, and that we can be accountable and learn too, right? Totally. And that's what it's all about anyways. And that's the freedom that you should allow yourself to exercise, so that, you know, it's all good, you know, it's all part of something bigger.
Yes.
So there are 3 works in the show.
Yeah.
Let's start with the 2 paintings, Ancestor 1 and Ancestor 2, from your breathtaking Traveler series. I would love for you to talk to me about these a little bit. I mean, I could go on and on, but I'd rather hear you say something.
Yeah, so the 3 pieces in particular, those ones come from a big body of work that's been forming over the course of like 3 years now. 3 years. And I make a lot, like when I say 3 years, like there's like 40 pieces. Like, I make a ton of work. I'm intensely creating most of the time. The whole series is about an immigrant forward future world. So the narrative is kind of like the displaced and the marginalized are the victors of the human race. And that means they are also the ancestors of the post-human state. So, and post-human state and science fiction, dystopia and utopia, all like if you're into that sort of thing, or you should be, because it's really cool and fun, but also very informative, and it satirizes on like who gets to move forward, who has the keys to the future, who is hears the word no and has to do it by themselves. So there's all of this stuff that goes on with that. So so yeah, at the heart of the series, the whole series Traveler is a vision of a colored post-human future world. And that includes like all of these paintings. They're sort of almost historically painted in my funny, weird technique, as these busts that are heroic, and they're kind of these static images of like you know, our predecessor, the people that we're going to make in the future. The climate change, drastic sort of climate change and catastrophe is a big part of that work. Because I like to touch on the idea of mutation. Mutation is really interesting because it's something that shows up in our world, and it's like mythologized and like written about and like romanticized or vilified, which is really crazy because like that, you know, mutation from what we do to the climate and mutation from what the planet does with itself, like these are really, really interesting parallel roads to look down. So it's just like really, really ripe for me to include that into the series, as well as mutation and culture and the way that culture changes as different cultures mix together and populations mix or become separated for many reasons that happen today. You know, what happens then to culture, because that's a type of mutation in and of itself, that's subtle. So yeah, I hope that, you know, that's most of what the Traveler series is about. So included in the PHI show with you are these two paintings, Ancestor 1 and Ancestor 2. A lot of my paintings are kind of blandly named. I don't know why. I don't want to. Sometimes it feels corny to like put a big long title. I just don't want to do it. I was like, listen, man, I did the work on the painting, okay? Just like look at the painting.
What more do you want?
Yeah, what else do you want from me? I'm tired.
That's really okay. Fine, good. And I love, you know, it's like this evolution, like it's mutation. So it's like we're imagining that, yeah, so Earth as we know it, you know, ends in, you know, through natural catastrophe, and, you know, off to adventurize and explore other worlds. And that, I love that these people, these ancestors, these hybrid beings are and that these are, you know, I read these as, you know, brown bodies, you know, like, become the evolution of and the resilience of the human, the next level of what human becomes, you know, this kind of post-human. And noble, you know, heroic.
Very noble, because that's what happens when you face adversity for long enough. You become quite noble, you know. So, and I feel like when I paint these figures, there's like stories behind them that I don't know yet. Like there's a lot that goes. It's funny when you've been told that when you're very small that you're an artist in your past life, you can't help but think that you're some kind of, I'm just like some kind of window, and like these things just come flying, because I don't know, like there's stories, I feel the stories behind these people that I paint, but I don't quite know what they are. Like I don't really know what's happened. Ancestor 1 and 2 are examples of sort of the first, they're like, because the Traveler series kind of started in the middle. I started painting them in the middle. They're like fully evolved. They've got like 16 eyes by then. Their skin's all blotchy to like camouflage with some kind of environment. And like their costume is like developed. Like there's technology and all sorts of funny things. So it's just like, so I did Ancestor 1 and 2, and I was just like looking at lots of like imperial artwork from Southeast Asia. And I was like looking at all these sort of things and like fabrics, patterns and things. I was like, I want to paint the first ones, some of the first ones. And it's great that you brought up off-worlding, because that factors heavily into the work as well. So I really love the metaphor of space travel as a way to talk about immigrant and also indigenous resilience. So it's just like, so having to move around like a lot, you know, I mean, I don't know about immigrants who kind of were well off and came here. I don't know much about that story, but a lot of us, we didn't really want to leave, right? Like our families wanted to, would have liked to stay, you know, and be peaceful. So it's like, so it's just like having to move around and being fragmented as communities and being fragmented, you know, the whole family apart in some cases, having to move around and form ourselves anew and like generate new culture to create solidarity between another larger group and all of these things, that type of resilience and culture making, together with off-worlding and that very interesting sort of colony mindset that comes with it, that I have a problem with. Okay. I don't like that white science fiction posits itself in a colonial way when it comes to space travel. I feel like in my stories, we were able, the travelers have been able to figure it out. And it's not detrimental to the planet or like other civilizations. My screen go away here. What's happening?
I still see you.
You can see me? What's this?
Your camera's
hang on a second. Yeah. It just like, okay, I'll just leave it alone then. I don't know why. So yeah, I really like that metaphor of off-worlding and space travel as the way to talk about immigrant resilience and success and prosperity and stuff. That's a good one for me. Yeah. Something that I saw. That's something that I think I saw in science fiction young, but I didn't realize that I wanted to talk about it in my work until like kind of recently. I didn't realize.
So that means that, does that mean that these figures assemble themselves in your imagination and slowly evolve, or how does the image come into being?
Okay, yeah. I mean, the way that I'll kind of research it, I'm constantly looking at like fabric patterns, and you know, I'm a big fan of Instagram. Like I'm on Instagram, probably too much on Instagram, as a lot of us are having maybe some trouble there, problems. So I research a lot of fashion, a lot of clothing, a lot of like armor, a lot of historical clothing, costume, ornamentation, jewelry, and the reasons that these are made. Like that's a big thing for me. I really love looking at desert tribes. I really like looking at the history of Sri Lankan sort of imperial wear and traditional clothing. The reasons that it's like that, like why are the flaps like this? Like why did they get that fabric? Like that, all of that is technology for me, right? Like that is great technology. That's a lot of those ideas come straight into the work, like the way that things are made, the way that they're worn on the body, what they cover. You know, if there's a lot of like super arid desert zone populations and communities that have things that cover their whole bodies, and you'll be like, that's so hot, why are they wearing so many clothes? Like, no, because like if the wind picks up, you'll get burnt, so it doesn't matter. You have to sweat a little, but at least you don't come away, go home at the end of the day and you're burnt up the arms or like on your face. So it's just like, there's all these things that I really love to read about and find out about, and they end up in my work. Right. So normally, to be honest with you, I'll be researching the outfit and the costume and the armor long before I'm figuring out how the face looks on this one person, because a lot of the joy that I take in putting this image together is like exploring the costuming, exploring like the armor of this person, and thinking about the different histories or like the different ancestors that have come together to protect this person in this particular way. Because the way that I dress them is it's the opposite of like the NASA the plastic, the sterile, Western, space capitalism,
Right. The trope, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like they found another way to do this, and it's much better because immigrants and brown and black people and indigenous folks in space do a much better job. Do a much better job in the Traveler series, you know?
Yeah. It's a lot more experience adapting, right? And that's
Yeah.
why, I mean, the clothing blows my mind. I mean, it's a personal, research area for me is clothing and the way it's manifests itself in contemporary art practices, and particularly, post-colonial explorations. But
Right.
the greatest thing about dress, and it's so fascinating that you start with the dress, with the clothing, is that dress is a powerful tool, right, to exercise cultural resilience through adaptability, right? It's through knowing that you need to know, what to do, and then you bring, everything that you've learned over the millennia, into that, and that's what I see in the clothing. It blows my mind. I mean, your research into pattern, cut, the colors, these all like reference traditions, and like patterns come from something, they mean something. And then they're super contemporary as well, like contemporary and futurist, like
Right.
you wearing this outfit, you know what I mean? It's like, I want to wear that now. Like,
yeah, trust me, I wouldn't paint anything that I wouldn't wear in a second. Never. Sometimes I will draw it and I'm like, I don't know if I'd wear that, and I'll erase it from the painting.
I won't paint anything I won't
wear. Yes, I know. You said that. I didn't say it. You were the one who said it. So yeah, clothing is huge for me, right? And I've been watching fashion and clothing and adornment and armor and fashion and style, which are a separate thing, since I was like so small. Like we got, actually, do you know Fashion TV, like the City TV show with, I don't know if Jeannie Becker is still doing that now, but we got it in Sri Lanka when I was really small, right? And I remember watching the Alexander McQueen show where he sent a woman down the catwalk holding two wolves like this. Do you remember that moment?
I do.
I had that moment when I was like this.
Incredible.
I'm lucky.
Clamped.
Lucky to see it. Yeah. Lucky to see it. So so I've been looking at it for so long, looking at clothes for so long.
Oh, there's so many more things I want to talk about, but before closing, I want to hear about the mask work that you made just for this show. Thank you very much.
Of course.
I take a journey, you take a journey, we take a journey together. Mask for it. You've been, pandemic aside, I mean, like, how crazy is that, right? So tell me about.
You know what? I was doing the pollution wear before
totally.
Before the pandemic. I have one here. This is the first one that I have it here in my studio because I actually
that's the one.
Shot a whole photo essay wearing my pollution, wearing clothes like a traveler here in Hyde Park, which is down the street from my house. But this is the first one. It's kind of big when you put it on, but that's the one.
Yeah, it's wicked.
That's like a red suede and leather with the brass, like these dead stock brass beads. So making pollution wear is something that, like, I was painting it on my travelers like from time.
Yes.
And then I started kind of looking at folks who are kind of embellishing masks a little bit and like doing some beading or some trim and things like that. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then looking at the ones that I'd been painting and just being like, I should really develop this. Like, and I want them to be functional. Mm-hmm. So then I started learning a bit of leather working just by myself, and also from, friends who are good at that sort of thing. And I just started to do it by myself at home. Like, I used the first Traveler show, the exhibition that you went to, I used that as the first show to really explore that medium of like working with pollution wear and embellishing these vital things these things that would be vital to these people's existence in the future. And I want to really go further. Like the one that I made for you is like, that was probably the most advanced, where I go with an entire gas mask, but leaving, of course, everything open that you could totally screw on the canister and use it, go ahead and use the pieces. I made another one for the Patel Brown, the first show that they just opened here, my gallery, and it's another gas mask as well. That one fits over the whole head. That one's gonna go to the Guangzhou Biennale in February. So like those, the mask works, yeah, they're moving not because of like pathogen and disease related topical subject matter, but because of like the overwhelming need to resolve anxiety around climate crises. And like these are issues that are put on the back burner and brought to the forefront, like toys that a kid plays with, and it's serious. So it's just kind of like, that's the reason that I made them, that I thought to make them, because of the paintings, because of my own kind of scared, sad, and angry feelings around what we're doing, and the type of sort of Western power, the type of capitalist power that protects the ongoing abuse of the planet. Though that's what I was trying to resolve while I make these, and thinking about their function in the paintings and in the lives of this traveler community. So I hope that, and there's a lot, right? Like I'll probably keep making them. They're really enjoyable for me to make. They're kind of soothing because they function and they work. So I'm just like, okay, like I'm doing this for an exhibition, but in the future someone can use it, and that's also good. Yeah. So I really like making those pollution works. Oh yeah, and then for your mask, that's just a rubber latex mask, and I've worked it with leather, beads, trim, brass, textile, metallic and cotton thread, and some adhesive that keeps it right onto the surface, the contour of the mask.
Yeah, it's a really striking, it's sort of got all of that sort of, it's got the beauty and the anxiety kind of, coming through in that piece. It's
I just shot them. Like I said, I did a photo essay wearing these, and I had no idea how scary. Like I put a lot of effort into making it look beautiful and like worked and like intricate, but I put this thing on and I looked at the photos. I'm like, oh my God, it's terrifying.
And it's also kind of like the morphing, like if we were to morph and evolve, through climate change, we could become, what
like
you,
our faces become, they become like shaped like that. Oh,
it's super interesting. But
I
then
didn't think about that. Great idea. Sorry. Just doing research while I do this interview with you. Thanks.
But it's also interesting to hear you talk about how the mask making is a direct extension of your painting practice, and how it comes directly out of these pictures that you've been painting of people.
Yeah, as close as I can get, with my skill levels. Like I'm not a leather sewer. I'm not really like a textile sewer either. But I'll just like go off into these other disciplines because it informs my painting practice as well, and my sculptural practice. It's really enriching to do it. But what I'd really love to do is work with metal and work with brass and like beating it and forming it like by hand, or like I don't know about casting because that's become really expensive and crazy, but finding other ways to metal work and continue that as a parallel practice is just like embellished pollution wear, or like high function luxury pollution wear, things like for the royalty of the traveler world.
I mean, yeah, it's really fascinating, where you're going with all this, and I'm super excited to keep following what you're doing. And I want to talk some more at some other point about, about beauty as a kind of a radical, you know, expression, you know. That'll be for another time, but also kinship, you know, because that's another, you know, kind of radical tool, you know what I mean?
It's
So,
funny, you're describing them as radical, but I find those to be really needful things.
yes. And that's what I mean by radical. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, rather than, you know what I mean? It's like rather than kind of like superficial or merely aesthetic, to use beauty and, you
Yeah.
know, is, you know, like a radical tool. It is to say, you know, I'm going to, yeah, yeah,
Or
okay. We're saying the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. For me, it's totally. I agree with you. I agree with you. I had a real problem with minimalism or highly conceptual academic work where the aesthetic was not paid attention to at all, thereby engaging less and less and less people at every turn, unless you can go to school for 9 years to understand what this copper pipe and the cinder block is about. I was having problem. That trend went on so long, Cheryl, like really long, you know? I was
Mm-hmm.
like, what's the prayer? What is this? What is this? So like, that's a big part of like me really engaging the viewer, you know, other than naturally it is the way for me to make artwork, but really engaging the viewer is about putting in the, sorry, sorry to swear,
Hey,
putting
I'm
in the
not,
work,
I
yeah,
swear like a sailor. Don't worry about it.
the work to engage the audience. Where's your work? Put in the work. I spent years practicing how to paint so I can engage a viewer and tell them a story. Like, come on,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So I think it's essential. And in my practice, and of course there will be many, many practices where the work is put into another place, but definitely for me, speaking for myself,
Mm-hmm.
cultivating beauty inside my practice and cultivating that as the way to pull the viewer in to hear a story, that's a big sort of delivery mechanism, right, for me in
Yes,
my work.
totally.
Yeah. And kinship 100 all the time. We should be building it not the way that we're doing identity politics now, becoming divisive. No,
Right,
no,
exactly. No, I
the
know.
other way.
We have to lift each
We
other
have to
up.
hold hands, got to join hands now. Come
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Oh, well, I'm sorry we have to, you know, close it off, but I mean, I'm gonna we're gonna talk again on Thursday. I think that's gonna be fun. I really hope there's a way for you to come and be with us and see the show at some point, maybe. I know you've got other fish to fry, but if it works out, that would be amazing.
I know. Let's see how it
We'll
goes.
see.
I agree. I wish we could have met. I wish you know, yes, there's a global pandemic, but it would have been so cool to chill and hang out with you.
I'm sure we'll figure it out. We'll find some way to, maybe it'll
Find
be
a way.
in some other, you know,
Well,
place.
they're doing closing. They're going to do closing something, right? They were talking about that. So maybe for that time, we're
That's
going to
what
hang.
we're hoping for. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Rajni. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you for your work.
Cheryl.
Let's
You're
keep
the
in
best.
touch. Aw.
Thanks for having me in the show and be so nice to me about my work, which I work really hard. So thanks for being nice to me about it.
Oh, good God. That's easy. You make it easy.